Welcome to Sahara TV. My name is Rodolfo Okonkwo. In 2011, South Sudan achieved its independence from Sudan following over 20 years of civil war. Part of the delay by the international community in supporting a referendum for independence and an eventual independence was the fear that by granting independence to South Sudan, other secessionist movements across Africa will be emboldened. 2 years after the euphoria of independence, South Sudan got embroiled in a bitter civil war that has killed over 300,000 people and displaced more than 1.3 million people outside and 4 million people inside South Sudan. There are over 400,000 South Sudanese who fled to neighboring countries of Kenya, Sudan, and Uganda. Why and how did South Sudan break down into crisis after independence? What do South Sudanese think when they are projected as a bad example of the irrationality of secession? Is there a lesson to be learned by other secessionist movements in Africa from what happened in South Sudan? With me in the studio is Angeline Terry. She was a former state minister of energy and mining in the Khartoum-based government of national unity between 2005 and 2010. She ran for governor of Unity State in South Sudan in 2010. She is also the wife of the former vice president of South Sudan, Riek Machar Teny. Ms. Teny, welcome to Sahara TV.
Thank you very much. Pleasure is mine.
Thank you for being here. I know you came to the U.S. to continue your advocacy for South Sudan. Exactly. Can you give us a brief summary of what the South Sudanese are pushing for at the UN and with other people involved in the American government?
What we're pushing for as a movement and as an organization, which is SPLM in opposition, is basically a new political process to allow us to resuscitate the agreement that has collapsed. The agreement that was signed in 2015, August. This agreement was to charter a path or a way forward for transformation in the country. It has embedded in it issues of justice and accountability. It has embedded on it issues of reconciliation and healing, institutional reforms. It was supposed to end in 30 months with an election that would have really allowed a process of constitutional making and so on. That agreement was blatantly abrogated by President Salva in July 2016 when he decided there was an attempt, or they attempted the life of the first vice president, who was a partner to this agreement in July, and we as a party ended up having to flee South Sudan, and we ended up, we were extracted by the UN from the Garamba Park of the Congo after having walked for 40 days, under hot pursuit, both ground and air pursuit. So basically, since the collapse in July, there has not been a process in place to try and resuscitate or revive that agreement. Mm-hmm. We think it is the only hope, because since that time, things have gotten worse. The UN, Mr. Adama of the Prevention of Genocide, have reported that there is a looming genocide in the country. So the scorched earth policy of civil targeting based on ethnicity continue to deteriorate, act with impunity, also continue to just become more and more blatant. So that's why we're saying we're hopeful. Our hope is to have a new process to try and resuscitate and review that agreement.
Mm. Now, for most of our viewers, they may not know the details of what happened, and they're feeling, looking at South Sudan, they're wondering what happened to the newest country in the world. How did it degenerate into a civil war?
Yes, even some of us are really in kind of a shock. It's like some kind of a nightmare, because the dream and the aspiration of our people has been that we will gain independence, we will have a democratic, prosperous nation whereby everybody have their space to express themselves, and to contribute and participate in the nation building, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, because we had 5 years of interim period when we were preparing for the self-determination and the referendum. During this, a lot of us actually, and many of the leaders from the ruling party, concentrated on ensuring that the referendum takes place successfully. In the meanwhile, our president concentrated on building a security sector that is only loyal to him. By the time we achieved the referendum in 2011, and we now went on to discussions on the future before we declare independent in July, because we achieved the referendum in January. We had 6 months. In these 6 months, we were preparing a transitional constitution. That's when the first falling out started. Now, our president was insisting on a constitution that concentrates a lot of power on the president, that centralizes the country. On the other hand, the rest of us were thinking that we need a constitution that would reflect what the people fought for and what they aspired for, a democratic state, a federal state where power is devolved, where people rule themselves. Became difficult because by this time the security agencies can only respond to one person who has become synonymous to the state and eventually became bigger than the state. You can attack South Sudan anytime and you'll get nothing from the security agencies, but attack or say anything about the president, it's like you've said something wrong about God. Mm-hmm. This is the status of affair. Yes. So this is where things started to go wrong. The president was not ready for a dialogue to charter a new way for the country and for the ruling party. The president was not ready for any suggestion from anybody as to address the issues and the problems that the country was facing. Now we have a constitution that is basically helped him to have grip on power. We had corruption rampant. We had institutional tribalism, whereby you just walk into any ministry, you can know that who is the minister in this ministry. We had no vision for our economic sector, literally.
That sounds like any other African country. Is it that a new country that came into place in 2011 didn't come in with a constitution that would have dealt with some of these old things which we are familiar with other African countries, where you're talking about Nigeria, Kenya, wherever you go to, these issues, corruption, ethnicity, those issues. What happened that at the beginning, these were not, with people like your husband being part of that these were not taken care of in terms of making sure that you have a constitution to begin with that will take care of things like this? What happened?
Yeah, but that's precisely where the problem started, because in 2011, when we decided to discuss the constitution, literally the president threatened parliament with dissolution if they dare vote for a constitution that he himself did not approve. The transitional constitution, because we were now supposed to go after that for a permanent constitution. Some of us fell, and some of the leaders, including the then first vice president, who is now the chairman of our resistance movement, raised these concerns that we must address these issues early on. We thought that is an opportunity. We should learn from the very experiences that you talk about. We were at a better place because we came to independence. After many countries came to independence, maybe 50 years, 30 years, 20 years. And we could have learned from those experiences. And we tried to learn and do things differently. And this is precisely why then we realized that we have a president who, I remember one young person describing him, a young person who was just 14 years old, saying, our president He's the president of the 70s, not a president of the 90s and the 20,000s, where people are talking about democratic transformation, where dictatorship is not the fashionable thing anymore, and so on. So this is precisely the problem that had happened. We tried. He was not ready for dialogue.
Now people say,
and he used state power.
People say that if John Garang had not died in 2005, that it would have been a different situation in South Sudan. What is your take? You work with him?
Definitely I worked with him, but I always say, what God plans, none of us can say what it should have been like this or it should have been like that. That was God's plan, that John Garang was not going to be with us. For me to move on, I say we accept that reality, but we also have to remember that John Garang was championing ideas of transformation for the whole Sudan. He was championing ideas of new Sudan. This new Sudan was to be a democratic, prosperous, free state for John Garang. There's nothing preventing us from imitating those and making them a reality. It doesn't have to be exactly, because people leave legacy, and people then should follow that legacy. We can never have regrets to say, why did God take him that early?
You say God took him, but there are some people who believe that his death was not an accident. What do you believe? I
would still say it's God's plan, because it's all by the power of God, whether it's done through a person or somebody's done it. I'm not going to speculate on that, but I'm saying he's left us a lot to learn from. He's left us a lot that should have helped us avoid the crisis that we're in today. And I'm sure he's also turning in his grave.
Now, let's talk about the current crisis. What is the role that Museveni, the president of Uganda, is playing in this crisis?
In 2013, definitely, Uganda has joined, became part of the conflict, because Uganda intervened on the side of the government. And UPDF fought alongside the government of the Republic of South Sudan. Of course, the claim was that President Salva has written to them and told them that there was a coup, which was a fake story, just so as to, to kill democracy in the country and to kill any possibility for dialogue. Now, Uganda withdrew as per the agreement, the August agreement. This time around, when crisis broke out, Uganda, however, has taken a different stand, and Uganda is actually calling for a peaceful resolution of the conflict, which means, people do learn, and we'd hope that President Salva should also heed to what President Museveni is saying, because it's a learning process. It's not easy when, when people are embroiled in a conflict where people die, children die, women are suffering. Now, what is being inflicted upon those people in South Sudan is, all the reports that come out are all unprecedented. The sexual violence against women, the sexual violence against men and against children. Not many people will talk about men who have been sodomized. I was saying to one of the UN people today, I said, maybe I should be the only voice, because men will not come out and say, I have been sodomized. But it is happening in a big scale. The UN report on human rights, commissioned by Human Rights, put the level of rape against women in just one UN camp in the capital to 70%. And this is done by government soldiers. These are UN's report. So you can imagine if there's a margin of error of 10% either way. So it could be 80%. This, to me, nobody can tell me today that this is not a policy and that this is not directed. Because I don't know.
Directed by the president?
Directed by the government.
Government.
Definitely. It's a policy. It's a policy using rape and sex as a weapon of war. Because by any standard, anywhere in the world, if you have 100 soldiers, they go somewhere, and 70 of them end up raping, that cannot be by accident. That cannot be by the fact that, okay, it's an opportunity, let me do this. But they go far. International aid workers were raped in Juba in 2016. Many aid workers, up to 67 NGO international aid workers, have been killed. These reports are there.